Minnesota Vikings, you're on the clock. Welcome back to our team-by-team mock draft series. This time we're talking Minnesota Vikings. We'll talk cap situation, we'll talk free agents, and most importantly, we're going to dive into a 7-round full mock draft. So make sure you hit that like, that sub, and let's get to it. Currently, as it stands, the Vikings have plenty of money. They got over $10 million. They've got a roster chock full of stars and studs and vets and surprise at quarterback with Sam Darnold, but there are some in the community that haven't been surprised by Darnold. He's going to be the biggest domino that this team will have to decide on as they move into the 25 offseason and draft season. What do we do with Sam Darnold? Now, obviously, most would expect him to re-sign, and if Darnold's smart, he'll re-sign, whether it's a team-friendly deal so he can continue to be the starter. He definitely fits what this offense is looking for at quarterback, and he's done a really good job at it this season. It's taken him some time to develop in the NFL, but he's still young enough to be a team's franchise quarterback moving forward if he found the right franchise, and it appears that he did. It gives time for J.J. McCarthy to heal up. It gives time for J.J. McCarthy to continue to develop. I mean, maybe this could be that potential situation like we've seen Green Bay have so much success with over the last 20, 30, 40 years. You have a quarterback in waiting who's young and can develop, and this gives them time to do that. So that's going to be the first domino, is the Sam Darnold situation. Moving forward to 2025, they have plenty of cap resources. They're almost $80 million in cap, but you have to look at what's going on in the free agent market. So they have a lot of guys that are free agents coming up. So it starts off with Cam, and I've got this sorted by current contract, so obviously this isn't like most important, the least important, but Cam Robinson, obviously Sam Darnold, Byron Murphy, Stephon Gilmore, who's getting a little bit older, Aaron Jones, who's getting a little bit older. Obviously we see some of these guys that are right around the 30-year-old mark, except for Murphy and Darnold, Shaq Griffin, Jerry Tillery, Dalton Risner. I mean, so you see, in the first grouping, you see a lot of secondary. We got 3 corners in their top free agents that are sitting here. We've got some quarterbacks, we've got some wide receivers, we've got some offensive linemen. I mean, there's a little bit across the board. And there's some depth pieces here. I mean, Patrick Jones has had some solid reps this year and continues to develop. He's a guy I would expect them to try to target to re-sign. Cam Akers has put in work as a nice depth running back who's given them some good reps throughout the season. Same with some of these other guys, J. Hill. I mean, there's a lot of guys here I could see them look to re-sign. They have a couple of guys in Ryan Wright and Theo Jackson who are restricted free agents, so those will be different situations that they'll have to work through. But there's plenty of free agents I could see them looking to re-sign that are their current free agents. When you look at this depth chart, they've got solid pieces as depth guys. They've got really good starters in so many positions. Kevin O'Connell's done a great job building this offensive line. Well, Kevin O'Connell and the front office has done a good job building the offensive line to protect the quarterback, has been good at building and finding free agents to bring in to help the defensive side of things. I mean, Harrison Phillips and Bullard and Greener, these are all guys playing quality reps for them and have done a really good job. We have some guys that have hit IR, especially on the offensive side with their rookie quarterback and Darisaw, who will come back and be in the fold for the future. So that changes. What do we do with Cam Robinson? What happens with Darisaw, I think, will affect and his development and coming back from injury will affect what they do with Robinson. But I still expect them to try to re-sign Cam Robinson. They didn't trade for him for nothing. So this will be an interesting offseason for them. And then when you go into looking at what free agents are coming up, there's a lot of receivers. So it's obviously not necessarily an area that's high need for them. I think they could try to target, linebacker. They could try to target offensive line depth, defensive line depth. Make sure, as always, in the comments, we love to talk. Tell me what free agents you would like to see them target. As I scroll through this list, there's a lot of guys that are available that are seasoned vets that have played meaningful reps. Carlton Davis from the Lions is a guy that's a potential free agent. If they don't re-sign him, that could be a guy you could target. Obviously, we know they're going to spend quite a bit more on Sam Darnold if they re-sign him than $10 million, but he's there also available. So when you look through this list, there's a lot. A big name that I think folks will be looking at folks at different teams trying to target, and probably will have plenty of suitors, will be Chase Young from New Orleans. Maybe hasn't been the elite edge rusher that a lot have expected, but he's played some meaningful reps and is a good, solid veteran that I think that a team like Minnesota could target. As one of many teams that will probably look to target him. It wouldn't surprise me if they go get a defensive end. And now let's get to the thing you're most here for, the mock draft. Minnesota would be one of those teams that I would expect to trade back to get more picks. It wouldn't surprise me if they didn't, though, because Minnesota has some needs that I think some of these first-round picks will be helpful for. I think they're probably their top 3 needs, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong. Cornerback, if they don't resign these guys, there's a couple corners that they could see leave in free agency. I think outside linebacker and probably edge rusher. I know they targeted Dallas Turner. They targeted Dallas Turner as a linebacker last year. Early, but this is a team that could potentially keep looking for more defensive help because I think this offense is in a good spot. So I think they target defense again in the draft heavily, especially early. But let's see how the draft board falls out. And obviously we're using our friends over at NFL Mock Draft Database, which I do in all our videos, but there's plenty of good ones. I use PFF as well, especially when I'm working on my articles. I try to do a few mocks to see how things fall out. But with that being said, currently as the draft stands, we're picking at 30. All right. And for these mock drafts, we're not making trades, but like I said, I would expect Minnesota to be active on draft day. It wouldn't surprise me if they trade back because they're looking for picks. As we stand here, though, as I go through every single pick, make sure you guys let me know, who would you take? If you don't like the pick that I made, feel free to drop it in the comments. You aren't going to hurt my feelings. So at 30, we've got plenty of options here. We've got Siobhan Revel Jr., who's a guy who's been climbing draft boards. I think he definitely has round 1, round 2 potential, and certainly could be a guy that we look to target here, and probably will be the target. But I want to go through and see who some of the top suggestions and selection potential here are. Quarterback we don't need. We've got a couple offensive tackles. These would be guys that I would see people target at the end of the first round, so that wouldn't be surprising. Walter Nolan is a guy who I would love. For Minnesota, he could be a guy that could step in and play meaningful reps from day one, but also be a nice rotational piece on the interior there. Landon Jackson's a nice edge rusher that they could go after. There's plenty of guys here that I think that we could see them target. So there's plenty of edge rushers here if we wanted to look at edge rusher. This would be one of those positions where if they could slide back, even just a few spots and grab an extra 4th, 5th, maybe they get lucky and they trade and get an extra 3rd. I mean, this would be great because you got defensive lineman here. I like Walker. I think he would be a fun piece in that defense. But what you're not seeing here is you're not seeing a lot of corners. So when you look at what's here at cornerback, Siobhan Revel's kind of the top guy who's left. I like Denzel Burke. I like Darian Porter, Thomas, Everett. I mean, there's plenty of guys, even Darian Strong if you want to wait till later. But I want to make sure that we get a high-end corner first and foremost. So that's going to be the number 1 target for me personally as I look up and down this roster. So we're going Siobhan Revel Jr. The thing I like about Siobhan Revel Jr. is a guy, he not only the physical side, he's 6'3", he's going to run very fast. He's probably kind of mid 4.4s. So that I think he could fit in what Minnesota looks to do on the defensive side with their secondary, but he's aggressive. The thing that I think people will wonder about is because he's only had, really 1 strong year of consistent production. What does that look like moving forward? How do you project that to the next level? But he's a guy that I think has the tools and traits that a team is going to jump all over. The tools, I like the aggressiveness. I think he's a strong tackler. I think he could be a ball hawk in your secondary. I mean, I think that could be big for you, especially, in the division you're in. I mean, they're going to need to stop high-powered offenses. So let me know what you think about the Revel pick and up at pick 97. So now we've gone a long way. We've got a lot of picks that have been made. So now we're sitting here. We got linebacker help if you want to target Stutzman. I don't necessarily think they're going to target. I mean, Stutzman, I guess you could see him play inside or outside. I would be surprised if they took him, but I would be surprised if he's there at 97, quite honestly, though. I would think a team would probably draft him a little bit sooner. Nick Singleton, if you don't bring back Aaron Jones and maybe you don't believe in Cam Akers for another year or two, maybe Singleton would be a guy you would target. I love his upside and potential. I know he hasn't got nearly as much tread on the tires as some of the other running backs in the class. K-Par, Kuba. This is definitely an interesting fallout of the draft, the way it's gone. I kind of expected an interior defensive lineman here that I would want to jump on. I don't know that I love Capehart in your defense. I don't think Stutzman's going to be there, though, so I want to look and see what else is there. Oh, Ty Hamilton would be an interesting choice, but I don't want him. I mean, I guess you could see him as a potential 3rd round. Him and Riley Mills are 2 guys that I could think teams would fall in love with in the draft process. But let's see what else we've got on the edge. I like Jared Ivey. I like Dennis Sutton. These are guys that are nice developmental edge rushers that I think I think you could target and be happy with. Oh boy. Oh boy. What do we got here? Okay, so you know what? I'm just going to go edge rusher. I like Dennis Sutton's potential long-term more than Ivy, so I'm going to go with Dennis Sutton, but you could argue the case either way in my mind, and I would not argue you. I think both have a lot of upside potential. And with your defense, if you don't get an edge rusher in free agency, which you certainly could, and that changes the whole perspective of that pick. All right, back up at pick 140. Let's look and see what we got here. So we got wide receiver, which if they took a depth wide receiver in the draft, it would not surprise me. I like Horton. I don't know if he would be a Minnesota Vikings style of receiver, but I think he's an intriguing prospect. We've got, I probably will target running back here, depending on what the board looks like. Mondon Jr. as a player, I mean, I would like to see on this roster. I think he would be nice in that. Jay Higgins. Jay Higgins has got a ton of speed, a lot of athletic upside. He would be a guy I would love to see in Minnesota as well. All right, so let's jump into a couple categories. They've taken two edge rusher or two defensive players. So let's see what they got at running back here. I like Jaden Ott. Oh, I like Jaden Ott a lot. Mullings from Michigan is a hard-nosed runner. Obviously, Scatabo, apologize if I butchered that name, from Arizona State, has shown up in a really interesting player here as the season's gone on. Yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to take Jaden Ott from Cal. I love Jaden Ott. He's a guy that you'll see me draft kind of early day three, for a lot of teams that need running back help, just because I love his upside. I think the things that I like most about Ott, though, would be his first step. I mean, when you watch him on film, this guy definitely has a burst that is going to show up to people. He probably runs in the 4.4 range, kind of mid, maybe lower 4.4s, but I think that works for what Minnesota's offense looks to do. Got good size. You know, he's 6 foot. I think he fits kind of that mold of running back that they've been using lately. So I think it would be an interesting pick for them, especially on day 3, if they can get a running back that can fill in the void if they don't, or a guy who can be long-term, and it also depends on what you think about Tyson Chandler and Cam Akers, but I think they could use one more guy in the running back room to help, you know, kind of be that long-term guy, you know, maybe 2, 3, 4 years down the road. So why not grab a rookie in this draft class? Because there's a lot of good running backs in this draft class, and a lot of guys that are kind of under the radar, sneaky good, especially, you know, when you're looking in the top 10 or so of the running backs in this class. So grab a running back here, and then their last pick at 165. Let's see what we've got on the board. It would not surprise me if this was a very defensive heavy draft class for them, but we're going to try to get you a little bit of everything just so we can talk about some different players. I would not be surprised if maybe they did try to grab defensive lineman later in the draft if there was one that had tools and potential. Well, I mean, it's going to be Ty Hamilton here because he's still sitting on the board. I didn't expect him to be here. Ty Hamilton's going to be the pick here at 165 because I like this big physical interior defensive lineman. I think the great thing about him is that he's strong at the point of attack. I think he's one of those guys that you could see really make an impact as a rotational guy early that could develop into a startable guy in the future. And you're seeing that throughout the season here and even into the playoff. I think Hamilton will be a guy that stands out as we get into the draft process as one of those day 3 type guys that you could target. Probably 4th or 5th round would be my guess if I had to make a prediction at this point. But I like it. I like it for your team. You know, obviously we've only got 4 picks here, but those 4 picks are guys that can make an impact for your team in year 1 and long term. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Who would you take? What positions, players? Would you switch out any of these positions or players? Thank you guys as always for stopping by. I do appreciate the comments, the conversations that we have, and we'll talk to you later.